afternoon and welcome to our first admissions webinar for 2020. My name is Karen Martinovich and I'm the Manager of Recruitment and Admissions here at the Michener Institute. I look after the following programs: chiropody, diagnostic cytology, cardiovascular perfusion, genetics technology, medical laboratory sciences, respiratory therapy, and ultrasound. I also have my colleague here with me today, Brett Snyder. He is here from the University of Toronto and looks after the medical radiation sciences programs with our joint program with U of T. And I'll let him say hi to you himself.
Hey everyone, welcome to our first Q&A of the season. Again, my name's Brett. I'm visiting today from the University of Toronto, here from the Medical Radiation Sciences program. That includes 3 streams: nuclear medicine, radiation therapy, and radiological technology. Now, I did just want to quick mention that Michener also does have joint programs, collaborative programs in the area of physician assistant and with U of T, and also in radiation therapy with Laurentian University. So if you're interested in those collaborative programs or joint programs, we won't be talking about those today, but we would ask that you connect directly with the appropriate admissions office. If you're not sure who that would be, you're certainly welcome to connect with us, and we'd be happy to direct you to our colleagues for physician assistant or for the radiation therapy program that's offered jointly with Laurentian and Michener.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to probably make a big assumption here that most of you joining us today have already applied to one or more of our programs, but we just do want to reiterate first and foremost, for those of you that haven't, that applications are still open. And for the Michener programs, the 7 programs that I mentioned a moment ago, our application deadline falls on February the 1st of 2020. You can apply right up until midnight on that date. And if you want to apply to one of the 7 Michener programs I mentioned, you will do so through ontariocolleges.ca. If you've never been an applicant to an Ontario college before, if you just want to create an account, it will then lead you through the steps very simply, and there is a very informative video to get your application going. You pay a $95 fee, which goes to Ontario colleges for your application choices, and then Michener has an additional $47 supplemental fee that's added onto that at checkout. You do pay that fee only once, regardless of how many Michener-only programs that you will apply for. Okay, Brett, tell us about the U of T deadline.
Right, so for the joint programs in medical radiation sciences, again, that will be nuclear medicine, radiation therapy, or radiological technology. The deadline will also be February the 1st. So that's the last day that you can initiate your application for admission for fall 2020. With the application, you can apply just to one of the 3 streams in medical radiation sciences, so one of those 3 areas, again, nuclear medicine, radiation therapy, or radiological technology. But you can also apply to up to 3 programs with Michener. So you could have 3 program applications in with Michener that you've submitted through Ontario colleges, and also 1 application to the medical radiation sciences program. When you apply to the program, if you are a current or previous U of T student, you have the option of applying using the U of T internal application. It's a little bit cheaper for you to do it that way. If you are an international applicant, you can apply using the U of T international application. But most applicants will apply through the OUAC using the 105 application, which is available just off the main page of ouac.on.ca.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you've applied and we've received your application, you will, or you should have already, received an acknowledgement email from us. Actually, the webinar date for today was on that acknowledgement email, so maybe many of you joined us when you saw it there. The next crucial date in our admissions process that you need to be mindful of is the February 8th deadline for supporting documents. So many people will apply to our programs and choose to send in supporting documents like transcripts or applicant experience checklists a little bit later. They might need to get more information, or it might take a while to get those credentials from the issuing schools to us. For that reason, we do give you the extra week to send us those documents. And at Michener, our preference is when you're submitting documents to us that you do upload them to your Ontario Colleges account. They will scan them, verify that they're genuine documents, and then post them on your account. Myself and my admissions team as administrators can then log into our account at Ontario Colleges and view your documents in a safe and secure manner. If you are from out of province, I do know that it is more difficult to send in transcripts, so we will not absolutely refuse to take documents that we get through the mail, but please be assured that once you put them in the mailbox, it is your responsibility to make sure that we do receive them on time. Because our programs are oversubscribed, any documents received after the February 8th deadline, we cannot guarantee that you will be assessed with other people from the program for admission for fall 2020. So please make sure to put it in your calendar to get your documents ready and get them to us on time so that you can be in the applicant pool for further assessment and potential interviews to, invitations to the MMI interviews in April. Okay, Brett.
Yeah, and so for medical radiation sciences, we also do require documents, obviously. Our deadline is a little bit different, so we'd be looking for February the 15th to be the final date for you to submit your supporting documents to the program. We have started acknowledging applications, so if you've already applied, you've likely received an email from us outlining the next steps in the application process. So do refer to that information as well. By that February 15th document deadline, we'll be looking for three types of documents from you. The first will be the MRS applicant checklist, and this is something we've implemented, I think it was new last year, and essentially it is a self-assessment type survey. It allows applicants to really help us with the efficient processing of the application file. So we ask that applicants identify the individual courses that they plan to use to satisfy our requirements. And this also is an assessment tool so that if you are not sure if you're qualified for admission, you can work through the worksheet and actually determine whether or not you believe you have the requirements to move forward in the application process. So the MRS applicant checklist is due by February the 15th, but we would ask that you get it into us as soon as you're ready. Once we've received that from you, we'll be able to take a look at the courses that you've indicated and do a quick check to make sure that the courses that you've identified as being the ones that you'd like to use for your prerequisite requirements will actually be acceptable and that you will be eligible for admission. So you can get that into us well in advance of the February 15th deadline, but February 15 is the last day to get that into us. By the February 15th deadline, we're also looking for your academic transcripts. So if you're applying to Michener programs that are not affiliated with U of T, you'll obviously be sending your transcripts over to Karen's office as she described. If you're applying also to MRS or only to MRS, you also need to send those documents to U of T. Our offices work closely together, but we do not share documents, so you do have to submit your documents individually to both institutions, okay? For transcripts, we do require that transcripts be delivered to the University of Toronto electronically whenever possible. So if you've studied in the province of Ontario, you will be able to request your transcripts be delivered through the OUAC. It's called the EDI system. So as part of your application, you'll be able to submit your request to have your transcript sent from your current or previous institutions directly to U of T electronically. If you studied outside of Ontario or outside of Canada, we ask that you upload your transcripts directly to the U of T application site. So if you have a hard copy of your transcripts, your official transcripts, you'll just scan those to the application site, and then we'll use those documents to begin our assessment of your application. Later in the process, obviously, we would require that you submit original versions of those documents, but for our initial assessment, just to make it more efficient so we can begin assessing as soon as possible, we ask that you upload images of those documents to us. Unlike Michener, we do not use West evaluations for our admissions purposes, so we'll be looking for copies of your original transcripts sent from or issued by your home institution where you've studied previously, okay? Now, again, we will require that you submit official documents at a later time. So if that's going to be a lengthy process to request those documents, you may want to begin that process now so that you have those available when the time comes. I will make a note as well for U of T students. If you've previously studied at U of T, you do not need to submit transcripts from your U of T studies to our office. We will have access to your official student record at U of T internally. So you don't need to actually go through that process of requesting or paying for those transcripts to be submitted to us. Now, if you've studied at another institution before or since you were admitted to U of T, we will require that you submit those transcripts, okay? Again, U of T transcripts would need to be sent to Michener or to Ontario colleges because we won't share your internal record with Michener, but for the joint programs, those documents are not required. So the three things that we need for the February 15th deadline are the MRS applicant checklist, the transcripts, and lastly would be your English language proficiency documentation if that's required of you. And there's many ways that you can meet that requirement if your first language is not English, and we would refer you to the U of T website for that, and if you're unable to locate that information, we can certainly provide you with a link to that part of the U of T site. Okay, so February 15th, MRS applicant checklist, academic transcripts, and English language proficiency documents if that's required of you.
So I'll just take the opportunity now to make a quick note about applicants who are applying to Michener who've been educated outside of Canada or the US. Brett briefly mentioned that we do require a WES evaluation. The acronym stands for World Evaluation Services, or ICAS, which is an International Credential Assessment Service. Those are the only two vendors that we accept, and it is the responsibility of the applicant to make sure that your evaluated transcripts get to us by February the 8th. Please don't send the original transcripts from your home country. In some instances, I know that they are only copies, and once we receive documents in support of your application, we can't return them to you. So please just send us the WES or the ICAS evaluation, depending upon which company you decide to go with, and your English language assessment. Our English language assessment authorized test vendors are very different from U of T's. It is listed on our website. I'll quickly mention that we accept TOEFL, IELTS, MILA, which is the Michener English Language Assessment, and the Pearson test English. So the MILA test, just to note, can only be done on site here at Michener, and there are very limited dates for that test that meet the February the 8th deadline. So if you're interested in doing the MILA test, please go to our website and sign up soon. Otherwise, all the other tests are available online around the world, and they do send their official scores to us directly. So please make use of one of those companies if you have been educated outside of Canada or the US.
Great. And I see we've got some questions coming in, so we're just going to hold tight on those until we've just moved through the last of the application dates, just to give everyone a quick summary. If that's okay?
Yeah, so I think the last thing that we need to touch upon before we can get to your questions is the multiple mini interview. So for those of you that don't already know or haven't already circled the date in your calendars, this year's MMIs will be April the 27th to May the 1st. So that is a full week, Monday through Friday, that you'll have the opportunity, if invited, to come on campus and go through a multiple mini interview circuit, which is the second part of our admissions process. When we decide who we will be inviting to come to MMIs, you will receive notification only by email. So there's no need to watch your mailbox or go on any type of social media account to find out. It's personal and confidential, and we'll be letting everyone know individually at the email address you provided when you applied. Just one note, if you get invited or ranked high enough to come to an interview in April, and you get multiple invitations because you've applied to more than one program, either at Michener or U of T, you only need to come to one interview. We do provide you with a link, and you do select your own interview day and time on the site, and it is first come, first serve. There is the ability to change your day and time while space allows, but at a certain date, and it's usually 10 days before the interview week, we do close down the site. And at that time, there will be no other opportunities to change or alter your interview time. For the 7 Michener programs, if you are out of the country or on vacation during that week, unfortunately, there's no other opportunity for us to invite you on campus to do an MMI. And at that time, we would close your application file for 2020. It's very rarely that we make exceptions to this rule. It's just 900 candidates in 1 week, and unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity nor the facility to do or repeat that type of opportunity again. So please make sure that you do circle that date and clear your calendar.
And no destination weddings.
No destination weddings
week.
last minute, or my mom bought me a vacation for graduation.
Yeah.
Tell her to book it in June.
Yeah. So mark those dates now. And again, early April is when we'll be issuing notifications as to whether or not you've been invited to the interview. So everyone will find out whether or not they're moving to the next stage in early April. Now, there's one other step between the document submission deadline and the interview notifications for MRS applicants. I just wanted to do a quick backtrack slightly. And that would involve the Michener Supplementary Application Assessment Fee. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
So Michener does have a $47 application supplemental
fee.
I can never remember what it's called. I think it's changed the name, so like the name's been changed. So
They keep bread on his toes.
Yeah. So if you've applied to a Michener program and you've also applied to MRS, you will have paid that fee when you applied to Michener through Ontario colleges. If you're only applying to medical radiation sciences, that fee will become due in late February. So we will notify you in late February once we've compared our applicant lists to see who's already submitted that payment. And we'll notify you if that fee is due, and then that fee would be due by March the 1st. It's going to be the deadline to submit that fee if you have not already paid it to Michener in support of an application to a Michener only program. All right?
Brett, if I'm an MRS applicant only and I don't pay my fee by the deadline, will you still assess my application?
No, it is required. So that fee must be paid in order to be eligible to move forward to the interview stage of the application process.
Got it.
And the interview stage is required for everyone. So in order to be considered for admission, you must complete that portion if you are invited to that stage of the process. Okay, so again, those dates are very important. May 27th to April 27th to May 1st. All right. For MRS applicants, if you live more than 400 kilometers away from Toronto and you're unable to attend in person, there may be an opportunity for us to schedule an online or distance interview for you. That is only available to MRS applicants. So if you are invited to the interview stage for Michener programs and MRS programs and you opt for the distance interview and you're approved for a distance interview, that interview score would only be applied to your MRS application, okay? So it would mean that you wouldn't be moving forward with any applications that you have currently active with Michener, all right? We have a very limited number of interview spots for the distance format, so again, if that's something that's going to be important for you, you can certainly contact us and we can provide you with more information. It is certainly our preference, though, that you do come to campus and attend on campus if at all possible, all right?
Okay. So it looks like we have about 25 minutes left. I know Brett's got some great questions on his phone, and he'll probably just go through them now and select the ones that will probably have the most value to our larger audience, and we will spend some time addressing those issues for you.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, I just want to take us through a couple more final dates for admissions, and that would be when decisions are issued. That's going to be mid-May for both of us, right? Yeah. So everyone will know by mid-May whether or not their admission will be offered. And then if you have documents that are outstanding, if you have any outstanding prerequisite courses or any outstanding documents, those would be due for MRS by July 15th And for you?
It's the same date.
Yeah.
July 15th.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so now let's just take a look at some questions that we have coming in. The first one is it too late to apply this month? And the answer is no. If you're looking for fall 2020, the deadline for all full-time programs is February the 1st. So that's the deadline to submit your application either through OCAS for a Michener-only program or through the OUAC if you are applying to one of the medical radiation sciences streams. Someone says my credential assessment will be finished after the deadline. And so you're pretty strict on that deadline?
We are pretty strict. So if your WES or ICAS evaluation, you know that talking to the service providers that you're not going to meet our February the 8th deadline, please send us an email and let us know what the delay is. If it's because it's coming from a country where currently it's very hard and lengthy process to get credentials, we will evaluate your situation and any others like it on a one-on-one basis. So please email us the details of the delay and we'll get back to you within 48 hours with a response. I don't want you to worry.
Great, okay. So how does MMI work with people from out of province? Will it be a video chat? For you?
For Michener programs, no. It is mandatory that you come to Michener, you present yourself on campus for the in-person interview. As I said before, we don't make exceptions to that rule. So if you are from out of province, you will need to make arrangements to come to Toronto. I suggest that you pick a date throughout that week that's maybe on a Friday or a Monday, so you can make a long weekend out of it in Toronto and maybe top up your visit with some sightseeing and visit friends if you have any in the city, or just kind of make yourself a tourist after the interview and enjoy the experience. But no, unfortunately, you will have to come to Ontario and do the interview in person.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to kind of get a sense of, you know, the campus and the neighborhood that we're in, all of that as well. For medical radiation sciences, like I said, there is an option possibly for an online or distance interview. Again, we have a limited number of sessions that we have available, and so we ask that you request that from us and indicate why it is that you're unable to attend in person, okay? Because we do prefer that you do attend in person whenever possible. Is WES mandatory for Michener?
WES is not mandatory for Michener. You do have a choice of the two service providers. The second one is ICAS, International Credential Evaluation Services. And if you meant by your question, is it mandatory if you're internationally educated? The answer to that is yes, absolutely it is. And as somebody else just mentioned, it can sometimes be a very lengthy process depending upon where you conducted your undergraduate studies abroad. So I do recommend that if you haven't already started, you do so in the next day or two.
All right, thanks, Karen. So the next question is, I have an MSc in Canada, but my BSc was not from North America. Do I need to submit a WES evaluated BSc transcript reports too? I think it's going to depend on the program you're applying to.
Yeah,
right?
For a Michener program, if you have a Canadian master's degree, super. We ask you to absolutely send us all relevant transcripts in your post-secondary education, but we will require that your BSc, because that is the admission requirement to most of our programs, not a master's, be evaluated by WES or ICAS and sent to us in addition to your Canadian official transcript of your master's degree.
Yeah, and for medical radiation sciences, we would not require a WES evaluation. We would require copies of your transcripts that were issued by the institution that you attended. We'd also require that you submit transcripts for your master's, but those would be looked at as sort of additional qualifications because the basis for admission to medical radiation sciences is undergraduate level studies. So that brings up a good point as well. So if you've studied at college or if you've studied at any post-secondary, you must provide those documents, even if the program or the level of study or the type of program is not going to be used for admissions purposes. You still must provide us with transcripts for all of your post-secondary studies that you've completed, okay? The next question is, How do I fill out the prerequisite course information on MRS checklist if education has been completed internationally, having different course codes from overseas universities, and those sessions courses have been completed in the past, already have a WES ICAS assessment. So you're certainly welcome to upload your WES and ICAS documentation as additional documentation for your application. But we would ask that you fill it out the best you can, the MRS applicant checklist. So indicate, the session and the course name for the course that you believe will be appropriate to satisfy each of the prerequisites. Once we get that submission from you, we will begin working with our assessors, and they will confirm that the courses that you've completed are at a level that are appropriate, and that the subject content and focus is going to be sufficient to satisfy the individual requirements as well. How do we know when we have access to supplementary applications? Do we get notified via emails to access a SUP app, to programs for respiratory therapy, ultrasound, and chiropody?
Okay, so it sounds to me like you've applied to Michener before. We did used to have a supplementary application, which was a document that was full of Michener policies and information about becoming a healthcare worker in the allied health field in Ontario, and we no longer have that application. So the $47 fee that you paid when you applied at Ontario College to our 3 programs that Brett mentioned is it. The information that we used to distribute through the supplemental application will be provided to you at different points through the admissions process in different communications. So some of it was on our acknowledgement letter, some of it you'll see in an offer of admission now if you receive one, and other information has just been posted on our website. So if I were you and I wanted to really be sure what I'm getting into when I'm training for an allied health profession, I would do my research and I would read our website very carefully and make sure that some of the provincial legislation that governs becoming an allied health profession and that does apply to our students, usually at the point of their clinical semester, is okay with you and you feel comfortable with that, and you can still check off, yes, this is a program and a profession that I'm interested in. But there's absolutely no more paper-based supplemental application that you will need to access.
Great. So the next question is regarding second semester marks. Do they count into our average for joint nuclear medicine program? My current semester ends December 14th, but marks don't make the requirements. So because we'll do our calculations and sort of determine all of our applicant scores in the winter months, so February and March, winter semester course results will not be included in the averages. So you could certainly, be working on outstanding courses that are required to meet the admission requirements, but in terms of the calculation of your score, we'll use all of your course results up to and including results from the current fall 2019 semester, okay? And that brings up another good point, and that's about transcript submission. So you will need to provide transcripts with your fall semester results. So when you go online to submit your request to have your transcript forwarded to the University of Toronto, there's some options there about the timing for that. So if you send us a transcript now and you're currently studying and it still shows in progress for all your fall results, we will require that you submit an additional transcript once those fall results are on your official record, and those results would be due to us by February 15th, okay?
And I'll mention the process for Michener programs. Many of our programs that require an undergraduate degree to be admitted into our programs, I do find that a mistake that some of our applicants make is when they're requesting their transcripts through Ontario colleges, there are 2 options. One option says send transcript now, and the second option says send the transcript at the end of spring term. And so because students know that we need a complete undergraduate degree for admissions, they sometimes check that box, and we don't have an application to assess you with between February and the end of March, which is when we assess all applicants. and unfortunately we can't go further with your application because by the time we receive it in April, your transcripts, it's too late. It's kind of over for us, and there's no time for us to backtrack and start assessing those applications. So Ontario Colleges has added a third option, which says send transcript now and at the end of spring term. So I suggest that you click that box and we'll get a transcript immediately with your marks as they are today. And then we'll also receive the final transcript in April, which will meet our requirement to prove that you've completed your degree requirements. So please be really careful when checking those boxes when ordering your transcripts.
Great advice. And for both of our institutions, there could be situations, and there often are situations, when we will issue an offer of admission and an applicant still has some outstanding courses that are required, documents that are required, that kind of thing. So those offers would be conditional until you provide us with whatever is still outstanding. And again, that would happen in the summer months. Okay, so the next question says, if an applicant applies for only one single program in Michener, does it have a positive effect on sending MMI invitations? So does it make you more competitive if you apply to just one?
That's a good question, but the answer is no. So our process is very transparent and very fair, and it's all based on how you rank. So if your admission score, which is the academic assessment, ranks you near the top of the pack for everyone that applied to this program for September, you'll get an MMI interview regardless of how many programs you applied to. If you apply to 4 programs or 3 programs at Michener, and you rank high for all 3, you'll get an MMI invitation for all 3 programs. So whether you apply to 1 program or whether you apply to 3, it makes no difference. It's all based on your academic score and how that ranks against everyone else that's applied for each specific program for this given year of 2020.
And then once you come to your interview score would be applied to each of those active applications.
That's right.
And it's possible that you could receive an offer for multiple programs, right? You could receive an offer from us over at U of T for medical radiation sciences, and maybe all 3 programs at Michener. So then you would have your choice. So we're not going to give you kind of one option at a time. You would know all of your options and be able to make your decision
at once.
Yeah, at once, yeah. Next question, do I still need to send my original transcripts even if I do send my WES?
We did talk about this earlier. The answer is no. So what happens is when you pay your fee to WES to have them evaluate your transcripts, even if you have them here in Canada with you, they will write to the school or institution that you attended in your home country, and they will request that transcripts come directly from that university to WES with no middleman. So even if you go down to their offices and say, here's my transcripts from Barbados or wherever it may be, I'm going to give them to you now when I pay, they're going to say thank you very much, but those are no longer official documents because they've been handled by you as the middleman. They have to come straight from the university that you studied at directly to WES's offices in Toronto, and only then will they start their assessment. And so we do not require those documents either. Please don't send them to us. All we need to see is the end result, which is the evaluation that WES provides us.
Okay, and for medical radiation sciences, if you have a WES or ICAS evaluation, you're welcome to submit it as part of your document bundle. But again, we'll be basing our assessment on copies of your original transcripts that were issued by the institution that you attended. Later, we will require the official documents, preferably sent directly from the issuing institution in the envelope that they provided. It needs to be a sealed envelope directly from the institution if it's not coming electronically through one of the secure electronic delivery methods. Okay. For Michener programs, if a current transcript and transcript at the end of the fall semester are sent before the February 8th deadline, will a separate confirmation of degree completion also be required as well, or will the transcripts be sufficient?
It depends on what programs you apply to. So if you apply to respiratory therapy and or medical laboratory sciences, We don't need a final university transcript, just the one from your current semester is fine. Any other programs that you apply to at Michener than those two? Yes. We need a current transcript, and we will need one at the end of April to ensure that you met your degree requirements and that you're eligible to graduate. But again, for medical, laboratory sciences, and respiratory therapy, no, we just need the one transcript now from your fall semester.
Great, thanks, Karen. Next question is, my IELTS will expire in January 2020. Is it still acceptable?
Okay, so the easiest way to explain this is we only accept them if they're 2 years current to the date that you apply. So if you apply on Ontario colleges before the date that Brett just mentioned on your IELTS, then to us it hasn't expired. So we combine the date on your test with the date that you apply. So if you apply on February 1st, it's going to be out of date. If you apply before, was it January the 1st, Brett?
January 2020, yeah.
January 2020? Yeah. So get your application in before the end of December, and it will still be valid for this application cycle.
Yeah, and for U of T, it can be a little bit more complicated. It sounds like in your specific situation, it will be fine. But if you have any questions about your file, feel welcome to send us an email, and we can follow up with our assessors to give you more details about that. The next question is about chiropody. For English language proficiency, I'll be completing my 2 academic years post-secondary education in Centennial College by this month. Is that okay? I have a WES evaluation for my BSc.
So what this applicant is referring to is that the one exception that we have to providing an English language assessment for internationally trained applicants is if they've studied for 2 years full-time consecutively at either an accredited college or university in Canada, you are exempt from providing an English language assessment. So instead, to prove that you meet that exception, you'd send in a transcript from that school here in Ontario. So that means if you're studying part-time, you won't be exempted. If you take a break between studies, so you studied 1 semester at Centennial, took a semester off, came back part-time, it will not exempt you. So it has to be 2 years of full-time study consecutively, and that means without a break in between.
And I know for the U of T side, if English language is required, if those documents are required, it will show on our portal. How do your applicants know if it's required or if it's been satisfied?
It's up to applicants to be prepared if you have studied outside of Canada or the United States to provide these documents. We will not send you prompts to remind you. When we receive your application, we're not going to pre-assess you and say, oh, this candidate studied out of country in a country where English is not the first dominant language. So we'll send them an email. We don't do that. The onus is on the applicant to ensure that they meet those requirements, and it's their responsibility to get them in on time as well.
Okay, so they've got questions they should follow up with your office.
Absolutely. If you send us an email, we can certainly respond to you and let you know if it's required or not for you, but please provide us a lot of details in your email so that we don't have to back and forth with you, and if you do need to get going and get some credential evaluations or an English test, we're not holding you back from getting that process going.
Great. Okay, next question. In order to apply to nuclear medicine joint program, does U of T or do U of T breadth requirements need to be satisfied in the first year of university? No, we're just looking for the prerequisite courses that we require for admission. So we're looking for at least 10 single semester courses need to be completed preferably by the end of the winter semester, the very latest by July 15th. And we'd be looking for the prerequisite subject courses in biology, mathematics, physics, and social science. Okay, so that's what we'll be looking for on your transcript. And that comes to the end of the questions that we have. If anybody has any last minute questions, feel welcome to type them down below and we'll get to them, and otherwise we'll wrap up in a few minutes. Do you have anything else to add at the moment?
Just that I can't stress enough how important it is that you make sure you get your transcripts to us now rather than at the end of your April semester in your final year if you're applying to a graduate program. I've seen many great applicants not be considered for admission because they only requested their transcripts to be received by us after the end of April. And it's very sad when I open an envelope and I see, you know, really good transcripts for students who've worked really hard and get great GPAs, and they just click the wrong button. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So that is probably the biggest error that we see our applicants making. And I know you're nervous, and I know you guys are all busy and doing 1,000 things, but it is so important that you make sure that you've clicked the right button. So even now, if you're second guessing yourself, when you log out from the webinar, go back onto your Ontario Colleges account and just make sure that you did order the transcripts to come to us immediately. And other than that, I mean, I personally wish you all the best in the admissions process. We try our very hardest to be as upfront and transparent about our process with you. We encourage questions. We run webinars like this so that you can interact with us throughout the process and ask questions that might be confusing to you. And I really hope that I see a lot of you here in April at MMIs, and I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you.
Yeah, and Michener is a fairly small institution.
Yes, absolutely.
Medical radiation science is small, so you'll be dealing with a very small group of people, and we're certainly here to support you through the application process. So do feel welcome to reach out to us when questions arise, okay? So just a couple more questions and we'll wrap it up. So how do I know if you received my document from WES or not, since I can't see it from OCAS?
Well, what you can see when you order a WES evaluation, they actually have a website that you get a log on to, and once your assessment is completed, the status beside your name on their website shows that your assessment has been completed, and we also have access to that site. We have a log on to WES from an administrator's perspective. So what I do, or what I would suggest, is that you log on to there and make sure that you can see that it's changed to in progress to completed. And if it says completed, you can be 150% sure that we also will receive a copy of your WES, so don't panic.
Okay, so we have another question about English language requirements.
Sure.
And this is from someone who's applying to MedLab and is currently working as a tech in a hospital. They've done a variety of things. They finished a science degree outside of Canada and assessed by WES. Am I required to take a language test? Is working in a hospital laboratory going to have any weight on the application? I think the last one's maybe not connected so much to English language, but it's just more about.
Yeah, so if you have been educated outside of Ontario but are now residing in Ontario and working in a regulated or health profession where you have a license to practice and an association with a professional regulatory board like CSMLS or OAMRT, please just send in your license or your registration number, and that will exempt you from an English language assessment when we get to your application. Absolutely.
All right, well, that's good to know. Next question is, to apply to nuclear medicine joint program, do you go through OUAC 105? Probably yes. Most applicants will use the OUAC 105 application. However, if you are a current or previous University of Toronto student, you can apply using the U of T internal application. It'll save you a little bit of money if you do it that way, but with that application, obviously, you can only apply to U of T programs. So if you're applying to many programs across the province, you can also apply with the 105 if you are a U of T student or previous student. International students also have the option to use an international application the U of T offers, but again, for most applicants to nuclear medicine, radiation therapy, and radiological technology joint programs with the University of Toronto, you'll be applying through the OUAC 105 application, all right? Should I send my transcript right now or in January when I receive my fall semester marks? I'm in 4th year.
Send it now. Whatever mark you have the day we receive your transcripts is what we're going to use to assess you with. So when we get your April transcripts, and if that mark has changed in a particular course, gone up 2%, gone up 10%, gone down 10%, we're not going to change your assessment score because we're already locked in and ranked you with that score. So anything you do after we receive your transcript is not going to impact your position on our ranking. Whether it be positive or negative action that's happened, unfortunately we have to draw the line somewhere, and we do that when we receive your first transcript.
And so for medical radiation sciences, it's a bit different. So we do require that you submit your fall semester results to be added into the calculation. So if you're still studying, you are welcome to wait until your fall results are available. We would, though, recommend that you submit the MRS applicant checklist as soon as you're ready, just so that we can take a look at it and we can have confidence that we know that you've got what you need to be eligible for admission, okay? Next question, how do I apply through the U of T internal application? If you go to our program website on the U of T site, so medicalradiationsciences.ca, and if you click on the application requirements and procedures link, or the tab to that page, there's a link to the applications page for U of T, and on that page there's a link to the internal application. So bit of a lengthy process to find it, but you're also welcome to send us an email to mrs.admissions@utoronto.ca, and we'll be happy to send you a link directly to it. All right? All right, I think that's it. That's all the questions we have. Oftentimes questions, may arise just after you finish watching this, so do feel welcome to send us those questions by email or telephone. Yep. And then we're back in January for 2 more sessions. We'll be talking a little bit more about the next steps from that point on, so a little bit more probably about the MMIs and what to expect, and also dealing with the kinds of questions that come out of document submission and those kinds of things.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to add one last thing that I should have mentioned at the beginning. For our friends out there who are joining us today who are internationally educated, we do recognize the expense and the cost of getting English language assessments and WES evaluations. And I have good news. There is a not-for-profit agency operating in the GTA. They are called Windmill Loans. That's windmill, like the Dutch windmill. And if you need some help getting some funds together to fund your WES or your English language or both, or even just pay the $95 application fee and your supplemental fee, Windmill Loans provides micro loans to internationally educated applicants and new Canadians who are getting into another form of education or a post-secondary program, and they will help you with the loan to fund the cost of those tests and application fees. So look them up on the website. If you just Google Windmill Loans, check them out. They're a great organization. We do have pamphlets here in our front room at Michener if you do come and visit us. But if you do need that kind of money just to kind of get you going and get you over a hump to get you into the applicant pool, check them out. They're a great organization.
Great. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Contact details, how to get a hold of your office if they need to.
Yeah, any questions regarding admissions to our full-time programs in 2020, please email regoffice, that's R-E-G, office, all one word, at michener.ca.
And for medical radiation sciences, it's MRS for medical radiation sciences, .admissions@utoronto.ca, so UTORONTO.ca. And if you email Karen, and it's for me, she'll likely send it on over to me, and we'll do the same. So we do pass emails back and forth quite regularly as needed. So again, thanks so much for your time today. We look forward to assisting you throughout the application process and to keeping in touch. And until next time.
Good luck.
Okay, bye.